When I first bought the Apple Watch Ultra over a year ago, I was really unsure if I was going to keep it as my main Apple Watch. You see, I'm not like the people that Apple is advertising in their ads, running across a desert or hiking up the Rocky Mountains or deep sea diving in the Atlantic. I consider myself a pretty normal guy, minus making YouTube videos for a living, which admittedly, I guess is pretty weird. But nonetheless, I'm not into extreme sports, scuba diving, hiking, or any of the other lifestyles that Apple advertises to potential Apple Watch Ultra buyers. And I think most people are in the same boat. And now that the Apple Watch 2 is available to order, even though it does feature some small changes over my Ultra, like a brighter display, I still think that I can pretty much speak for the Ultra experience because I think a lot of people are questioning if this is worth a long-term investment. And I've been using my Apple Watch Ultra for over a year, so I feel like I can answer that. So I wanted to go over my experiences owning the Apple Watch Ultra for over a year and talk about some things I like about it, some things I don't like about it, how durable it is over a normal Apple Watch, and most importantly, give you my advice on if you should buy this $800 Apple Watch. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize that the Apple Watch Ultra 2 has a different design than any other Apple Watch on the market that Apple has ever sold. Like, I have owned every Apple Watch since the original one, all the way up to the Ultra, about 10 years of Apple Watch design, which is kind of crazy to think about that the Apple Watch is almost 10 years old at this point, but the Ultra is by far the biggest and boldest design change we have ever seen on the Apple Watch. And big is the key word, because this watch is much bigger than the Series 9, because the casing on the Ultra is 49 millimeters compared to the Series 9, which comes in at 45 millimeters. Now, this does result in benefits for the Apple Watch Ultra, namely with its bigger display. Personally, for me, I have found that the bigger Apple Watch display on the Ultra does make some things easier. So, of course, things like looking at the time or looking at these small complications of like information is easier on a bigger screen. It is easier to read and a little bit more legible. And it also helps with some of these smaller parts of the Apple Watch user interface when you're like tapping. So if I go to tap on like a complication, see the information, it's very precise when you have the bigger screen on the Ultra. I think the biggest difference the bigger display makes is when interacting with things like the native keyboard. Because again, the Ultra has that big display, it's easier to hit those very tiny software keys. Or another example that I really like with the bigger display on the Ultra is when I'm using it for walking directions. I use my Apple Watch all the time for walking directions. It's a lot better than constantly holding your phone and walking around with it. You can just glance at your watch, and having that bigger expanded map on the Ultra with the turn-by-turn walking directions is really useful. I'll also say the bigger display has only gotten better over time, because when Apple first released the Ultra, I feel like they really didn't take advantage of the bigger screen for the user interface. But now that Apple has released watchOS 10, it has completely redesigned a lot of the apps to take advantage of the Ultra's larger display to show you more information at a glance, and apps in general are much richer than they were on watchOS 9, resulting in a better experience not only for the Ultra, but also the other Apple Watches, which have gotten bigger displays over time. Now, there's also some exclusive watch faces on the Ultra which take advantage of the bigger display to show you a really feature-rich watch face with lots of information, like this new modular Ultra watch face, which is on the Ultra 2, and also came to the original Apple Watch thanks to watchOS 10. The other big difference with the Ultra over the other Apple Watches was the more durable design with a thicker titanium body compared to the aluminum bodies and stainless steel bodies on the Series 9 and earlier Apple Watches. Now, to reiterate, I am coming at this from a normal user's perspective, but as a normal user, when you're spending $800 on a watch, you want to make sure that it's going to look nice after a year of use. And I have to say that after a year of ownership, the titanium material on this watch pretty much looks pristine. The sides of my watch have no scratches, blemishes, or marks, and the sapphire display has 0 scratches on it as well. I've owned a lot of Apple Watches over the years, and I've had my fair share of durability issues. Like on the aluminum Apple Watches, the material itself would be fine, but on the display, I would always get small hairline scratches because on the aluminum watch, Apple uses a cheaper glass display. On the more premium stainless steel models, even though the sapphire display never really got scratched, I would have a lot of micro scratches or abrasions on the shiny stainless steel material. So the Ultra is kind of a combination of the previous Apple Watch experiences. The titanium body is free of scratches and marks, while the sapphire display remains unfazed as well. Now, the only damage that I do have on my Ultra is what I would call a small nick that admittedly is very hard to see. I have to really look for it, and it's on the top raised part of the lip on the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, during Apple's design presentation, they said this lip was to protect the display against direct impacts, which is important because even though Sapphire is more scratch resistant, it actually is more prone to shattering than regular glass. And I've banged my Ultra on a lot of hard surfaces like wood and metal, and I've scraped it up against a ton of things just from daily wear. Like even when recording videos sometimes with this table here, sometimes I'll like bang the Apple Watch Ultra on the table. And, other than that small nick in the top right corner, my Apple Watch Ultra has been completely fine. One thing that worried me when I first got my Apple Watch Ultra was how would other watch bands look on it? One of the biggest strengths with the Apple Watch for a smartwatch, or I guess any watch in general, is how easy it is to change the bands and the wide selection of not only Apple first-party bands, but other third-party bands that are available for this watch. And when Apple released this, they basically designed 3 Apple Watch bands specifically designed for the Ultra. So I was kind of worried, okay, will other bands that I've already bought still look good on the Ultra? This turned out to be a non-issue for me, as I think existing Apple Watch bands still look good on the Ultra, and they still fit really well on the Ultra as well. And even the more premium Apple Watch bands, I think, do fit on this device. Now, another small thing to note about this design is the inclusion of the action button, a button that when pressed can be mapped to like a specific quick command. I set mine to a stopwatch timer, which I do find really helpful for cooking, and it does save me a few presses in the Apple Watch user interface, and it's nice to know that you just press it and then the stopwatch will start, and then you press it again, and you can stop it. So I do like the action button, and it's funny because that's now actually on the iPhone 15 Pro, so I guess they borrowed that directly from the Ultra design. Now, I'm showering the praises of the Apple Watch Ultra, but there are things I don't like with the design, and that is that the design is much bigger. And yeah, it's really big on your wrist, so it is more prone to bumping into things like I mentioned before. It is harder to fit under longer sleeves, which is really annoying when you're wearing like a dress shirt. And its size and weight, I wouldn't describe as uncomfortable, but it's definitely more fatiguing after an extended day of use. What I mean by that is if I'm wearing like a normal Apple Watch, I don't really feel it throughout the day. And I can wear my Apple Watch Ultra fine for like the whole day, but there are times where I do feel like I do have to adjust the watch so it fits more comfortably on my wrist. And I do notice it being on my wrist more than a normal Apple Watch. So even though the Ultra, has like the best battery life for sleep tracking, I don't like wearing my Ultra to sleep because, again, I notice it's on my wrist, and I also, by the end of the day, I kind of want to take it off my wrist, to be honest. Now, yes, I spent a lot of time on the design differences with the Ultra because in reality, that's going to be one of the main differences for normal users deciding between this and a Series 9. Feature-wise, they are very similar watches. Both have the same performance, both have the same health sensors, and yeah, you could argue there are niche sensors on the Ultra, like a depth sensor for diving and better GPS tracking for outdoor runs. But again, this is a normal user's perspective, and those features haven't impacted the way that I personally use my watch. However, there's one other big difference that I want to talk about, which I think is actually the biggest difference and the biggest deciding factor between picking a Series 9 over the Apple Watch Ultra from a normal user's perspective, and that is battery life. The battery life on the Apple Watch Ultra is great. It has about double the battery life of a regular Apple Watch model, and this is by far the biggest user behavior change that I have had since switching to this watch. On previous Apple Watches, I would usually get through a day of use fine, and maybe I could even stretch it to 2 days of use if I didn't use any workout tracking, which can drain a normal Apple Watch pretty quickly, which did result in some battery management on my end, where if I was going for like an outdoor walk, maybe I wouldn't exactly set the watch to do an outdoor walk because I didn't want to drain that battery. And that battery anxiety for the normal Apple Watch never went away for me because I would pretty much have to charge it every single night. Well, on my Ultra, my battery anxiety is completely gone because no matter how I use my Ultra, I know it can get me through a full 2 days of battery life on a single charge. And that really is using like a ton of features. So for my normal 2-day period, I know I can wake up and take off my Apple Watch from the charger, hit my morning workout, which usually lasts about 90 minutes, and then continue to enjoy all the features on the Apple Watch Ultra throughout the day. Then I can even leave it off the charger, wake up again, put my watch on, go through my day, probably hit another 30 to 60 minute period of using the workout feature, and still use my Apple Watch as I normally would for the rest of the day. And then on the second night, I can place it on my charger and repeat the process again. Now that's my use case. I think I'm a pretty heavy Apple Watch user with its features, but I've heard others say they can get about 3 days of reliable battery life on a single charge, and you might be able to stretch that out even further with features like low power mode. I also found this extended battery life useful for other scenarios like traveling, where maybe you're on a plane for like a 14-hour flight and then you have to land at your destination and you still have a full day ahead of you where you don't have time to go and charge your watch, or maybe you did like a 2-day trip and you didn't bring your Apple Watch charger. Like the Ultra should be able to last through those trips, which I think is really good because it does give me peace of mind, because I do have a cellular plan on my Apple Watch, and I also consider my Apple Watch kind of like an emergency lifeline in case anything happens to my phone. So if something happens to my phone, I know I have the peace of mind that my Apple Watch Ultra will be strapped to my wrist and it will still have battery life to contact emergency services or to contact someone else to let them know that I lost my phone or something like that. I'll say another side benefit of this extended battery life is that the battery also ages way better. Again, I have used this Ultra for over a year now and even put a developer beta of watchOS 10 on the watch, and betas are known to take a heavy toll on the battery. But even after a year of use, my battery health on the Ultra is still 97%. For reference, my old Series 7 watch, which I used for a similar yearly period, had a battery health of under 90% by the time I was done with it. And the aging of that battery was much more noticeable after a year of use with my Series 7 because the battery was dying noticeably faster than when I first started using it. I can't say the same for the Ultra. This thing feels like it lasts just as long as the day I bought it, and I think the battery health reflects that. All right, so is the Apple Watch Ultra worth it as a normal user? Well, even though I had a lot of positive things to say about it, I still think the vast majority of people watching this video should still buy a Series 9 or even the cheaper SE. But I do have to say that if you love your current Apple Watch, or you want the best version of it with a durable design and battery life that will just last and last, well, this watch is worth it even for normal users. And as a normal user, the watch will age better than other watches. So even though it is $800, you can keep it for the next 4 to 5 years, and you'll probably end up having a better experience with it for those 4 to 5 years than you would have if you bought a cheaper Apple Watch model. If that fits your criteria of what you want in an Apple Watch, then yes, the Ultra is worth it as a normal user, and I'm going to continue to wear mine. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give me a like. If you want to learn more about the new Apple Watch Ultra 2, well, make sure you're subscribed for future videos. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.